Anjos, get your together, I'm waiting for you.
Who the fuck is that guy?
DC.
Here we are once again, and like before, I'm the dog from the Buck and the Dog YouTube channel, and last night we had ourselves a UFC pay-per-view, UFC 215. UFC 215 had the making to be a great card, but ended up falling a little flat. First, with the cancellation between Junior Dos Santos and Francis Ngannou, because JDS had a potential USADA violation, and hopefully JDS turns out to be innocent. But, let's be honest, if I was fighting a guy like Francis Ngannou, who's 10-1 with a 9-fight winning streak since 2014, I'd probably be juicing up myself. And on top of that, the Flyweight Championship main event between champ Demetrius Mighty Mouse Johnson and Ray Borg was also scrapped, because Ray Borg fell to illness. Now, I don't know how serious the illness is, but if you had that opportunity for a title shot, you need to take it. If I was Mighty Mouse, I'd be looking at another fight immediately. Maybe Sergio Pettis, someone like that, someone who's coming up and almost deserves a title shot. Now with that out of the way, we can talk about the fights. This time I'm going to start in order with the first fight, the prelims, Mitch Clark versus Alex White in a lightweight bout. The fight started out decent with a quick pace and striking and clinch work by both guys. For the first round, Clark hangs in there with his striking, but most of his work comes from the clinch, while White had much better counters, especially with his left hand hooks and straights. In the second round, Clark's striking gets a little better, but he still can't figure out White's counters. Clark still goes for his clinching, but White unleashes these devastating elbows that stun Clark, and as they break, White hits Clark with a big knee, dropping him. As he lets him back up, White starts unleashing hell on him. Pinpoint accuracy, Clark's knocked all over the place. He tries for a takedown. He shows a lot of heart in this fight, but he can't get it and ends up getting knocked down again. And after that knockdown, White gets the TKO stoppage in the second round. It was a good fight. Mitch Clark, amazing will, but it was outshined by Alex White's very good striking. Next, the second fight of the night, Gavin Tucker versus Rick Glenn in a featherweight bout. Coming into this fight, Gavin Tucker is undefeated, so you can see he's pumped. He tries to bull rush Glenn at the start and almost gets caught in a standing chokehold, which was almost a crazy way to finish the fight, but it didn't work. For the rest of the round, it was mainly back and forth exchanges and standing and clinches, but Glenn catches Tucker at the end of the round and drops him for a split second, which I would say won Rick Glenn the round. In round 2, Tucker comes out much angrier. You can see in his face he's pissed, which makes him more sloppy, as he was taken down 3 times, 2 of those which he gave up his back. Glenn lands decent ground and pound with elbows that cut Tucker open. It was an easy round 2 win for Rick Glenn. The third round, you can see Tucker's getting tired. Glenn easily pushes the pace into his favor. He begins to pick Tucker apart everywhere and gets an easy takedown. Glenn doesn't do much with this as Tucker flips him. Then Tucker tries to get a better position. Glenn uses a heel hook to flip again. After that, Glenn absolutely smothers and punishes Tucker until the bell, where the fight could have easily been stopped beforehand. Rick Glenn gets an easy, well-deserved unanimous decision win, and Tucker undefeated no more. It was a good fight where it showed Gavin Tucker has a few flaws, and it proved Rick Glenn can hold his own in almost any position. On to the third fight and the first female bout between Sara versus Ashlee EvansSmith. It was a quick, well-executed fight where Ashlee took Morris to the ground and looked like she had complete control, only to get stuck in an armbar where Morris would flip her to sink that armbar in for a quick submission win in the first round. It really showcased that Sara Morris can be dangerous from her back, and it was a great, quick finish fight. I liked it. The main event for the prelims, Sara McMann versus Vieira in another women's bantamweight bout. McMann goes for what McMann is good at, and that's takedowns. It takes a bit, but she gets Vieira to the ground. After some transitioning fighting, she gets to full mount, pulls off some decent ground and pound, and Vieira's only offense is she had a few submission attempts. Now, for the second round, it was full hesitation. They didn't do much until eventually they end up against the cage, where Vieira explodes and gets a very powerful takedown, looks for a head and arm choke, and gets it. Just like that, the fight's over, which keeps Vieira undefeated, and I feel that for Sara McMann to stay relevant and to stay close to the top, she needs to work on something else and not just her wrestling. First fight of the pay-per-view, Jeremy Stephens versus Gilbert Melendez. Each round was the same story. Stephens leg kicked the absolute shit out of Melendez, much like Edson Barboza did. Melendez continuously fell down every round because of those ruthless leg kicks, and the damage showed. Melendez's legs swell. They got huge knots in them. Stephens gets the unanimous decision win, but for Melendez to stay in there, hold his composure, and continue to get up and fight after each leg kick knockdown showed he still has a desire to fight. As for Stephens, it showed great execution in his game plan, and he didn't necessarily need to rely on his power. A very good fight for Jeremy Stephens, and I'd like to see Stephens fight Ricardo Lames next. Stephens has been inconsistent throughout his career, and I think a win over somebody in the top 5 is just what he needs. If he doesn't, he's just going to hang around the top 15 forever. And his potential, I don't think, can be wasted. He's getting older, he needs to fight better dudes, and he needs to get up there for that title shot. The next fight was Ilir Latifi versus rising undefeated prospect Tyson Pedro in a light heavyweight bout. The fight was an average fight. Latifi had a better gas tank and landed many takedowns. Pedro would do too much explosive defense to get out of situations, which led him to gassing. Although Pedro did have good stand-up against Latifi, his fakes and feints and continuously changing direction led him to good offense. But at the end, it wasn't better than Latifi's takedowns and ground control. I'd say Tyson Pedro is still a rising prospect after this fight. As for Latifi, it's a good comeback victory because he gets the unanimous decision. And it's just a good victory since his KO loss to Ryan Bader a year ago. And I think he can continue to be a contender and fight maybe OSP if he loses to Shogun, or maybe someone like Jimmy Manuwa next. Either way, the light heavyweight division needs some more contenders, which is why I think Tyson Pedro is still a prospect. He can keep winning. He can only learn from this fight. The third fight of the pay-per-view and one of the best fights on the card, Henry Cejudo versus Wilson Reyes in a flyweight bout. Coming into this fight, they're both coming off losses to champ Mighty Mouse, plus Cejudo is also coming off a loss to Joseph Benavidez, so it was an interesting matchup on paper. However, Cejudo showed he was on a completely different level from Reyes, and I always liked Reyes. I thought he was an underrated guy who could beat Mighty Mouse. But Cejudo looked like he evolved from his losses. He was much faster, used a new karate stance, and was very effective while Reyes couldn't keep up and was dominated. After Cejudo easily picked him apart in round 1, he catches him quick at the start of round 2 for an impressive and rare-to-see flyweight knockout. I think another win and this new Henry Cejudo could beat Mighty Mouse or whoever may be champion. The next fight, and my favorite of the night, Magny versus Rafael dos Anjos in a welterweight bout. It was pure dominance for dos Anjos. He takes Magny right to the ground, works his positioning, and puts in a triangle choke for a first-round submission victory, which is not easily done against a guy like Magny. For dos Anjos, he's soon ready for a welterweight title shot, and Magny needs an easier fight to find his footing again, and a finish will put him back where he needs to be. So it was a great fight. I always loved a quick first-round finish. That's how you show your dominance, and that's how you get higher up on the rankings. And on to the main event, Amanda Nunes versus Valentina Shevchenko for the Women's Bantamweight Championship. And it was kind of boring. It was kind of boring for the duration of the fight. Nunes didn't blitz here like she did to the other fighters in her past fights. She was trying to fight more smart, but she hesitated too much. And for Shevchenko, she was looking to counter strikes, but there wasn't much to counter because Nunes was hesitating. So you can see how the fight was boring. The only way I see Nunes winning round 1 was her constant pressure. She continuously walked Shevchenko down. And round 2, kind of the same. So I'd say round 2 was a draw. Round 3 being the low point with each fighter doing the least, I'd say it was another draw. And then at least in round 4, Shevchenko's counters and offense picks up just a little, and I'd say picks her up the round win. Round 5, much of the same as the rest of the fight, but Nunes shoots for takedowns and finally gets one and ends the round on top. So I'd say that would win her the final 5th round. So Amanda Nunes does get the split decision, which makes sense, but damn, between this and Tyron Woodley's championship fights, they need to go out there, defend, or want to take that belt. Championship fights should not be boring. I don't know why these championship fights have been lackluster. I don't get it. It's supposed to be the best versus the best. Figure it out. So with that, I don't care who Amanda Nunes or Valentina Shevchenko fights next. I just like to see a card, a pay-per-view especially, keep its fights together. I don't make the fights, I just watch them, and you will hear from me the next time I watch a fight. So be sure to enjoy, like, and subscribe to The Buck and the Dog for more.